So Library Makers is a community that connects and supports library maker staff of all levels and experiences. So we welcome everyone to the community. We do a lot of stuff like this very thing, like STEAM Seekers. We do tool talks. We have an ambassadors program. And really we're just about helping people, library professionals and others, to be leaders in the field and to share their resources with one another. So today we have a special presentation and I will hand it over right now.
Hello, my name is Trina Camping. I am the Makerspace Librarian at the Woodland Public Library. We are just outside of Sacramento. We are an independent city library and a single branch. We opened our Makerspace in 2017, so we've been open a little over 6 years now. So it's about a 2,000 square foot space that we've got here. We run programs for all ages, preschool on up to 90 something, I think. I'm not sure I've had anybody over 100 in here yet. But I'm not actually presenting from our Makerspace today because there are 57 fourth graders in there right now. So that is that. So of all of the Zoom time that we had, I've never actually presented over Zoom, so please bear with me. All right. So today I am here as a Maker Ambassador to talk to you about the summer camp that we ran in our Makerspace in the last 2 years. So I gave this talk, the first part of it anyway, at CLA in June of 2023. I've given a couple of talks about our Makerspace at CLA and PLA, and I've done presentations throughout the state for this. So this is about our Maker Camp. So I'm a Makerspace librarian. I started as a literacy coordinator here at Woodland. I have been here almost 10 years. So I started as a literacy coordinator, and then one day they were like, hey, we're thinking about doing one of these things called a Makerspace. I don't know. We're sending the children's librarian to a training. And I was like, oh, I want in on that training because I have never met a craft I didn't like. I went to this training. It was with Tech Shop in the Bay Area in San Mateo. And they were a for-profit Makerspace chain. They were open 24 hours a day. So we went to this training. I was there from 9 to 5 doing lecture type stuff. And then I would end up staying there till 1 or 2 in the morning making stuff because there was all this cool equipment that I was finally getting to use. And so from out of that, we built our Makerspace. It's square one, 745.5 square one. Quick quiz. Why do we think it's named that? Anybody? We're a library. 745.5. Anyone? Unmute yourself. Evie's laughing like she might know.
Is that a comic book section?
No. But you got it's a Dewey section, so good on you. 745.5 is the Dewey Decimal for handcrafts. So that is why it's the name of ours. Square one refers to the iterative process of design where sometimes things fail and you have to go back to square one. So that is why we are called that. We are a 2,000 square foot makerspace. It was done as a remodel. It started in 2015, the planning and the construction started in 2016. We are funded by various tax measures. There was a 0.5-cent sales tax that helped us build the space. It was passed in 2008. They promised the library $6 million. Then the economy crashed. And in 2016, they gave us $600,000. So a little different. But we were able to open up the space, and through sponsorships and partnerships and grants, we filled out the space. We are open 30 hours a week. I've got about 15 part-time staff in there. I'm the only full-time person from the library. But we've got a bunch of different staff in there that help, and I've got teens all the way up through retirees who have various aspects of things that they enjoy doing. We are currently funded by a quarter cent sales tax that started in 2014 and renewed in 2022. So we are funded through 2032 by this quarter cent sales tax that we have here in Woodland. All right, so here's kind of a layout of what our makerspace looks like. It's, like I said, it's about 2,000 square feet. You walk in, we've got a laser cutter. I'm going to go clockwise around the room right now. So we've got a universal laser, 50-watt CO2 laser cutter there. We've got some minor screen printing capabilities. We have a little outdoor area that we're working on closing in for a bigger screen printing machine. We have paint, glass etching, things like that next to our double sink. We've got some 3D printers. I think we have about 7 in operation right now. We have a walled off area that has our wood shop in it. And in our wood shop, we've got a panel saw. We have a large, it's large for us. Our large CNC is a desktop shop bot. Then we have a bunch of power tools along the side bench there, drill press, scroll saw, bandsaw, radial arm saw, a router table, and a sander. Then we've got a whole bunch of hand tools and wood storage and various scraps. We've got a huge donation. A guy realized that we're here and he's in construction, and so he brought us a whole bunch of 2x4 and 4x4 offcuts, which are great for school visits. They don't need perfect lumber, they don't need large pieces, and most third graders have never held a hammer. That's one of my, I would say it's one of my favorite statistics, but I don't love that it is a statistic. But it is a really powerful way of telling people in the community why this space is important. And then we've got our small CNC at the Carvey. They don't make them anymore, but it's the same company that does the X-Carve. And we come back out the door, we've got a 54-inch vinyl cutter. We have several silhouettes. We have heat presses. We have sergers and sewing machines. We have an electronics bench. We have a digital arts area with a small scanner and the full Adobe suite. We have a green screen, a black backdrop, a white backdrop, cameras and video cameras that you can check out with your library card. And then in the last year and a half, we've installed a memory lab, so a digitization area for VHS primarily, but a large high quality scanner and some other digital media as well. So all of our equipment is on the outside, and then inside we've got 8 tables that are all on wheels, and we've got a couple of mobile benches that have drawers and different supplies and things like that. And then we've got stools in there, and it's entirely flexible. So I can pull out half a dozen sewing machines. We can do a sewing class, a quilting class, something like that. Those all get put away. Then we can pull out paint, and those can all go away. I can pull out the hammers. We can do something with that, and then those all go away. So it's a very flexible space, and that was one of the things that Tech Shop really emphasized in that training that we did with them. So in April of 2022, I got an email from the Make magazine about their Maker Camp curriculum. And I have ADHD, and so it seemed like a really cool thing to put together in 6 weeks and implement in our library for the summer. So I went and looked at the curriculum. The Maker Camp curriculum had all kinds of different activities and ideas and supply lists, and it was all free. And we registered as a library. They sent us this ginormous box of free stuff, all kinds of cool stuff in there. And so we started thinking about how are we going to do this? You know, we've got the space. We have a Makerspace librarian that's a little loopy sometimes and has these grand ideas, but we had all this free curriculum. I have an engaged staff. They were all super into it. I have a very supportive director. She is all about giving us the freedom to fail. And we've done some really incredible things with that. And so we had to figure out how we were going to do this, because I don't have the time in the middle of summer reading to now do Maker Camp for 6 weeks. But it was something that I was really into and really wanted to try. So we had to identify our resources. And I happened to be at our local brewery and talking to the beer tender there on the right. His name is Keelan, and he had just finished his bachelor's degree, and he wanted to go into STEM teaching, but he wasn't sure that he wanted to really commit to a credential yet. So he was really wrestling with, what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. And I was like, so, hey, I've got this space, I've got this curriculum. You want to come run this program for me for 6 weeks and see how well you like teaching? And so he did. And we hired Keelan, and he came in. He was here for the summer. He moved down to San Diego. He's now a long-term sub for the San Diego Unified School District, and he's amazing. So San Diego, you got a great resource there. But we're kind of, we're in the makerspace. We're kind of in the corner. A lot of times we get overlooked, but now you suddenly have all of these kids there doing things, and people start asking, like, what is going on over there? How, like, what are these kids doing here at the library? And so I'm going to talk today about how we did it and what we did, how we got started, how we ran it, what worked in 2022, and then again in 2023. So we ran 6 weeks of camp. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It also integrated with library programming. So library programming, we had presenters and a STEM activity Tuesdays and Thursdays from the children's department. So this butted up nicely against that. And so kids could even stay through that. We do things big in our library. We don't do things halfway. So that summer and this last summer, our theme was Read, Make, Explore. We turned the columns in our lobby into trees, and we went big with the whole get outside and read. We all had little shirts that looked like we were forest rangers. We had signs everywhere that were based off of the Forest Service fonts and things like that. We decorated the library to look like different biomes in California to help promote the First Partners initiative with the free Parks Pass program. So in California, you can get a state parks pass at any of the local libraries to go and visit those parks for free. So we really integrated all of that. And again, we had our Tuesday performances. We had lunch at the library every day. So we are a site where the school district will drop off lunches every day. And they always start the summer and they're like, we'll bring you 25. And we're like, no, we need 100. No, we'll bring you 25. And then by the end of the first week, they finally believe us that we really need 100 or 120, because we are offering programming in as well, in addition to just lunch. So we have the lunches, we have books and games and things that we bring out. If you stay there and read, you get an otter pop. We're just trying to get people to come hang out at the library. Then on Thursdays, we did s'more time in the evenings. We actually had a fire pit and we made s'mores and handed them out. And we had different activities for kids, teens, and adults throughout the summer. And this is what Keelan came up with for our 2022 calendar. So we had Maker Camp. A lot of the graphics came from the Make Magazine company. And he set it up so that we were running Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like I said, and each week was a different theme. And I can share that with people later if they'd like. But here were the themed weeks that we did. We had a week of chemistry. We did a week of camp crafts, things, all different kinds of fun, crafty things you could do in the makerspace. We did one on electronics and circuitry, one on robotics, one on programming, and then we had one on engineering and physics. So we got the curriculum, like I said, from Make Magazine, and they have all kinds of different curriculum online. So we registered as a camp, and you get this dashboard here. And the dashboard has all these different things you can do. It's got a whole thing like, yes, I want to do this activity for 20 kids, add to cart, which is really nice. It cuts down on the shopping time. There are things for all different budgets, all different age groups, all different types of things in there. It's an amazing resource that we really used a lot in the last 2 summers. So we had registration. And so in order to participate, we had, oh, somebody said they can't see the bottom. Thank you for letting me know that. How's that? Is that better? Okay, great. Sorry about that. And let me go. Okay, so for registration, we had to do a library card. So we got a bunch of new library card users. Everybody had to have a waiver for Square One. They also had to have a waiver from the city. So we borrowed Parks and Rec's waiver for their programs. And then we had an online scheduler for people to sign up with. So here was our first week of chemistry. So they made slime, of course, because what program is complete without slime? And they did some chromatography. They did heat sensitive moon sand. So we got, the word's escaping me right now, but color changing depending on heat. And so they made all kinds of fun stuff like that. Then this is our engineering week. So we did an egg drop, which was a lot of fun. We have a 2-story courtyard, very oddly shaped building. So it's kind of like a square, and in the middle, you can look up at the second story. So we had a bunch of egg drops. We got some things stuck in the ceiling there when they were making their paper airplanes. So that's Keelan trying to pull something down there. We had a week of coding, which happened to be the week that the first partner of California, that's the governor's wife. She does not go by the first lady. So she's the first partner of California. She came and hung out with the kids for a bit and checked it out. She promised she was going to bring Gavin back, but that hasn't happened yet. But she was blown away that we had this in a public library, that we were doing this kind of work at the library, and it was all free, and it was free, and we were really focused on bringing in kids who were not going to have access to something like this anyway. I had one patron came up to me, she was pretty upset. She's like, "What's happening in there? Why didn't I know about this? We're here all the time and we didn't know anything about this." Well, it's because you're here all the time. You already have access to this. Like, you are already here. Everything that we are doing here is already available to you and your daughter. So we really tried to get into the schools and recruit kids. The problem we've run into in the last 2 years is that the school district has COVID money. So they've been enrolling all of the kids in summer school. And I have yet to be able to convince the school district to release the kids from summer school to be able to participate in this. So I'm hoping maybe next year, 3rd year's the charm. Also, we have a library board member who's also on the school board. So I'll be taking advantage of that connection. So we did those 6 weeks. We had a lot of fun, did all of those sorts of things. And we focused on the kids, but I also realized it wasn't just about the kids. We had teen staff who haven't had a job before. They don't really know what this is about. The kid there on the right with the blonde hair didn't like kids, didn't really like working with them. They happened to be there one time and went, "Oh wait, this is actually really cool." And now they are a freshman in college and they're thinking about becoming an English teacher. So it really did help them develop and go, "Oh wait, no, it's not that I don't like kids. I just don't like little ones, or I don't like, playground duty," basically is what they don't like. But doing things with kids is a very different experience. And so identifying that, the kid on the left really just needed some structure. He needed somebody to be like, "Hey, you got to show up at this time. This is a job. We're paying you to be here." And so we're developing those skills, not just for these kids, but also for these teens in our library and in our programs. So here's some shots from that summer. We screen printed t-shirts for the kids. We played a bunch of games. So it wasn't just all science, but we did have a lot of fun throughout the summer. And we were able to do it because there's an amazing staff in Square One. And they all just jumped in and helped out, and they had great ideas, and really kind of setting up the framework for them and letting them go with some of their ideas, because they've got great ideas. And so that was 2022. and we finished out 2022, and that was great. And then in February of 2023, I was contacted by UC Davis for the Center for Neuroengineering and Medicine, and they had a summer camp program that they had been running, and they ran it in Davis last year, and they wanted to come run it in Woodland. The demographics between Davis and Woodland were 11 miles apart, but Davis has a university. It is very much a upper middle class community. Woodland is very much a migrant farming community. So the population sizes are about the same, socioeconomic are very different. And so they wanted to try running this program here. We also found out from the city that City Hall was going to be doing a summer fellow program. So every department was asked to submit a proposal for a project for the summer that we could do with a high school or college student who was thinking about working in public service, and what could we come up with? And what do you come up with on what to do in 6 months with somebody you don't know? And so I was like, hey, what if, we can't get Keelan back? We tried, but we weren't able to get Keelan to come back. So we proposed that our summer fellow, our intern, was going to help run Maker Camp. And so both of those things happened in February. And so we were able to host 2 weeks of this Mind and Machine summer camp. So this was a UC Davis program. We changed the way we structured it a little bit. So this year we did 2 weeks of the Mind and Machine summer camp for middle schoolers, followed by 4 weeks of the Maker Camp that we had done the previous year. So UC Davis brought in all kinds of different things. The picture in the upper right there, she's wearing a cap with all kinds of different electronic sensors in it, and they're injecting this conductive gel between the cap and her skin, so that she can use her head to maneuver these robots. The picture in the upper middle there is a kid from the neighborhood who came, and he didn't know how to use a mouse. He had never had to use one. He had a touch screen for school, didn't know how to use a mouse, and there he is. They put electrodes on his arm, and he's able to flex his arm to move this robot around on the table. His mind was blown. They were able to build and race robots. That's the upper left picture that we have there. And then the bottom picture is the professor from UC Davis who came in to talk to the kids, and then he also helped arrange our field trip to UC Davis. So we went to this bioengineering lab where they had 3D printed hands with robotic sensors and different electronic components in them. And so these kids got to go to all of these different labs on campus, and they had no idea that this stuff existed. And going back to the staff in Square One who visited, they live here 11 miles away. They are thinking about college. They are going to college. They had no idea that the stuff existed. So it was really an opportunity for all of them to find out about some of the stuff that was happening at UC Davis. So that was the first 2 weeks that we did that. And then we went back to our traditional summer camp. The egg drop remains ever popular. And so we do that every year. City Hall is usually like, why are we buying a dozen eggs a week? This makes no sense. But we just explain to them it's science. It's fine. So let's see. Oops. We had the girl, or the woman, Beatrice. She came in. She was our summer fellow. We also had a art teacher from the local high school who was looking for a summer job, and so we recruited him, and he made chessboards. So every one of these kids made a chessboard with, and I can't believe I don't have a picture of it, but they made chessboards, the checkerboards, with 2 different kinds of wood that they sent through the planer. They glued them all up, they sanded them down, and they all learned how to play chess because that's what he's really into. So really using his skills, and he learned how to make slime down there in the bottom center picture there. So combining our staff's interest with also some of the stuff that we had done previously. I have really blown through this. This is a super exciting part of my job. So I am here now for any questions that you might have. This is, oh yes, and the other part of our summer, that is a TikTok that I was in with Barack Obama. The book ends down there in the bottom corner of his screen, I made in Square One on our laser cutter. So opens up to questions. Please feel free to.
Yeah, do you have these, whatever you've, all these different projects that you did, do you have them written up somewhere that we could take a look at some of them?
You mean the ones that we picked for the different weeks?
Correct.
I do, yes. Let me make a list of what, and then I can send that up.
And your projects, did they so the egg drop one, it sounds like that went the entire week. Did some of the others go the entire week as well, or?
So the egg drop we did, it was a 1-day thing. So they spent the morning building their contraption and then we drop them right before lunch.
Okay. And then the headgear thing that you had, obviously, I don't think you own those. Who did you partner
No, we don't.
with? Yeah.
We don't.
Who did you partner with for some of these things?
So that was UC Davis. They had all of that stuff.
And did you?
And so they had.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And did you transport the kids there?
No, we ended up. They carpooled. We could not get the district to allow. It was a very complicated thing. We tried to get school buses. We tried to do the city bus. And we actually I was at CLA 2 weeks before camp started, and I happened to talk to Greg Lucas, the state librarian, and he was ready to hire me a charter bus to transport these kids back and forth. So love me some Greg Lucas. Unfortunately, the school district kind of dragged us along until 4 days before camp started. So they were like, yeah, we'll make it work. And then it fell through. So the parents.
So the liability was part of your, the liability didn't go to your library at all then for getting them over to the UC Davis. Okay.
No, we had, so we have the school district, they had buses, but they didn't have drivers because their driver's contract doesn't cover the summer. The Yolo County Office of Education has lots of vans that they transport kids in, but they couldn't figure out whose liability would cover them from school on their cars to the library, and then over to UC Davis. So yes, that was the biggest nightmare that we had, was arranging transportation. And that's a problem that we have all the time. I've got kids right here outside my window. They walked 2 miles here from their school because their school can't afford the school buses.
Yep.
Hey, I have this is Yvonne at Beltib. I have a subscription to Maker magazine, and I've tried to log in to their dashboard thing. I always have issues, and I actually have a personal subscription also. I find their e-offering kind of confusing. How did you figure out, how did you get in to get access?
Absolutely.
Did they give you special access, or?
So, yes, so there is a Maker Camp dashboard. And I had the link up, let me see.
Okay, so it's not through the magazine, like because you
It's
subscribe,
not
you have.
through, so I'll put the link here in the chat. So you go there and then you register your library as a camp, and it costs nothing to register, and then they will send you that stuff. And then you log in just on this website, and it's different than all the other stuff. I totally agree with you. I've had a lot of struggle with it, but once I got into the camp one, we were good to go.
Thank you.
How did we go about training all the staff on the Makerspace equipment? So we have our Makerspace has drop-in open hours 30 hours a week. We have basic use and safety classes for 6 areas in our Makerspace. So the laser cutter, the 3D printers, the wood shop, the sewing machines, the electronics bench, and the memory lab. You all have to come in and take a 60 to 90 minute class on it. Once you've taken that class, we put that on your ILS record. So when you check in with your library card and your ID, we can look and see, okay, yes, you've been trained on the laser cutter. You may now go use the laser cutter independently. So we, the staff, when they start taking those different bus classes. It's a basic youth and safety. You get your bus class, you get your bus pass. And that's how they do it. And they kind of go by interest. So everyone comes in as staff as a page. Once they have trained on all 6 areas and shown me something that they've done on all 6 areas, they actually qualify for a bump in pay. And they can move up to a library associate. So that's how we do that. Most of the staff that we had, with the exception of the art teacher and the civic fellow that we had been staff previously. So they were just continuing staff that were helping with the summer camp. The 2 of them came in and they trained for about a week, and they kind of figured out what they were going to do, and they wanted to do laser cutter stuff, and so I showed them how to do that and kind of worked with them to do that. Bus is basic use and safety. Yes. Budget. So I don't know. So the city paid for our civic fellow, and the staff time was all paid for by just our regular summer programming part-time staff. But I will look into what the budget was, and I will also send that out.
Especially per student, if we had an idea of what the cost per student.
Okay. Supplies. So I can do a field trip for a day for 30 kids for about $50 in supplies. So I would say this camp specific supplies that we had were under $200 a week. The staffing was obviously much more than that.
Of all the things in your makerspace, our whole library is only 1,200 square feet. What can you prioritize? Like, what are the things that you think are like, these are the essentials?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we are in a very unusual, incredibly fortunate place to have had this unfinished cinder block room that was vacant for 30 years and needed a use, and happened to have money at that right time. Like, there was a whole confluence of amazing things that happened at just the right time. So I recognize that this is not something that people are just going to go build next summer. And I totally get that. But I think a lot of the ideas and the concepts and providing kids an opportunity for open-ended exploration is the real takeaway here. That's what we really want to be offering. If I were starting with something and I had no other, like I had nothing yet, I would start with 2 things. I would start with a button maker, and I would start with the silhouette vinyl cutter. Button makers come in many different sizes. We have 4 different sizes. I call them the gateway drug to making. Kids can write their name, they can draw a picture, and in 30 seconds, they've created a finished object, a thing that looks like you could go to a store and you could purchase this, right? So this is actually a 3-inch button. It's on my desk, but the backside of it is a mirror. So there's lots of things that you can do with button makers that are not just yet another button on your shirt. You can do things like mirrors, you can do keychains, you can do jewelry, you can do bracelets, you can do earrings, you can do necklaces, you can do, there's a bottle top opener. So when I go and talk to Rotaries, we make bottle top openers. And it's just a really quick, easy way to kind of get people to think about oh, I can make this. How do I make something that works for me and what I am interested in and what I would like to do? So that would be my number one thing there. The next thing would be a silhouette. These two things combined run you about $500, including supplies. And the silhouettes are great because they're wonderful prototyping pieces of equipment. So you can start with making something simple like a sticker. Then you can do iron-on transfers. Then you can do things like simple screen printing with that. You can do glass etching with that. You can do card making. You can start cutting out pieces of paper and folding them to make 3D objects. And now you're thinking about taking a two-dimensional design, turning it into something three-dimensional and building with it. And that's the whole process. Like that's what we're trying to get, right? Is for people to go, wait, I have this idea. How do I turn this thing in my head into something tangible? And do it in a way that, yes, I can mess up, and that's okay. If you're just using printer paper on the silhouette to cut things out and to make different things, it's a very inexpensive piece of equipment. It's a very inexpensive project. I have seen at the last Maker Faire I went to, they have a display where you build little cubes in different colors of paper, and then you lay them down, and you're basically doing what a 3D printer would do. So you're building it up a layer at a time. And so what is that like? So now you've taken that piece of paper, you've made it into cubes, and now you're thinking about how those cubes all go together and how you would build something layer by layer all the way up. So those would be the two pieces of things. Those would be the two pieces of equipment I would start with if I were trying to get this type of thinking, this type of exploration into the library. The other thing is they're fairly small. They store on a shelf.
We have a Cricut, but how many kids? I mean, how many would you? I didn't think of bringing the Cricut out for the kids only because it feels like there's one each. But how do you get them to share it, and or how many do you have per?
So we typically have 2 out. We have 4 total, 2 of which we check out. But when I'm doing a class field trip or something like that, I only have 2 out. But they're all on computers. And so they're working on the computer part. And it's only when you're done with the computer part that you even come over to the Cricut or the silhouette. And that's something that we really implement in our makerspace. Is the center is what we call the design hub. That is where you're doing your design work and you're thinking about things and you're playing with the fonts and the layouts and all that different kind of stuff. Because if you're sitting at the laser cutter playing with all of that stuff, you're using the laser cutter's time, but you're not actually using the laser cutter. You're just keeping somebody else from using it. So that is a thing that we are really incorporating into everything that we do. You do your design work, and then you take it to the piece of equipment, you do your thing, and then maybe you need to come back and make some tweaks. Probably you do, because that's how making goes. And then you take it back to use that piece of equipment again. But that, all the way from a silhouette or a Cricut up to a laser cutter, the CNC, or any of that stuff.
And what are your resources for using the silhouette or the, the cutter? What do you use that kids would like? I mean, I see Design Space. That's what seems to be more adult stuff. Or is there a space that you?
So I am not super familiar with the current Cricut offerings. I had a Cricut personally about 15 years ago, where you had to have the cartridges, and that was annoying. I moved away from Cricut because I don't like that they tie you in so tightly to the Cricut world. Silhouette is a little bit more open. Anybody can download the software, anybody can do their design stuff, anybody can hook up a laptop to do it. So I'm not as familiar with the Cricuts. If somebody else has more experience with that, but for
where do you build the things that kids would want to do with the silhouette? Where do you, to give them inspiration to get started?
We start with typing your name. Type your name and make a sticker to put on your water bottle or something like that. And then, then they all want to do this super complicated thing to start with, right? And you got to start simple, because something's going to get messed up. And that's the important part, is you need to fail fast.
Okay.
You have to fail fast.
Yeah.
Because you are never going to have a perfect project the first time you try to use something.
Thank you.
And it doesn't matter how much you want it to work perfectly that first time. And so really giving the kids the opportunity to fail. They're not used to that. We do a thing using masking tape called tapeogami, and it's origami with masking tape. And these kids are so afraid to even try because they're used to being at school where you get your linear yard of masking tape, and here are the 6 steps you need to follow, and don't mess it up because you don't get any more.
Yep.
And so they can come in here and I can be like, nope, here's a case of masking tape. Go for it. Oh, look, that didn't work. That's all right. Let's try again. And that's so different from what they are used to hearing and thinking about. I will say I learned in February, well, I bought a couple of cases of masking tape in February of 2020. Masking tape goes bad, I learned a year and a half later, when we were back into square one. So yeah. But yeah, masking tape is super cheap. And the cheaper stuff actually works better. Because it's not as sticky.
As to the Cricut, as far as multiple people using, I will also point out one great thing that we do for our Cricut classes is have a project all cut out for paper crafts, and then show the development process on screen, and then walk everybody through building it. Like, they aren't specifically using the Cricut, but they're learning what the Cricut does. And so that's a great way to get kids in large groups when you only have 1 or 2 machines.
To add to that, another thing that we do with ours is we'll go to our computer lab that has like 12 computers, and they can do the designing there and then take it over and actually cut it out.
Yeah. We partnered with our County Office of Education to help host some of their adult education classes in our Makerspace, and wrote up the MOU. So they bought themselves 24 laptops that live in our Makerspace. So when they are not using them, we can. So that was, yeah, like those are the partnerships that make this stuff work. Because they didn't have a space, they didn't have a place where they could go do these adult ed entrepreneurship classes and things like that. So that's a pretty good deal. And it's, like their IT kind of sort of doesn't know about it, but our IT manages it, and yeah. Julia.
Yeah, so hi Trina, thanks for being here today. So my first question is, we are moving towards lifelong learning skills in our makerspace. You mentioned you had teens coming in, and that one of the skills that they were learning was on, that they had to turn up to the program on time. I mean, that's sounds basic, but that is an important skill. Are there any other skills that you would are you sort of thinking about developing with teens, lifelong learning skills, or
so no, we do all ages. We are definitely not just focused on kids. So we have a teen advisory board that we are bringing in there at least once a month. They're coming in once a week over the summer. Our library does an Adulting 101, which is a full day long conference type thing. The kids can sign up for a variety of different sessions. I did one this year, it was a couple weeks ago, and on tools, like a basic toolbox. How do you hang a picture on the wall? How do you use a level? How do you use a ratcheting screwdriver? How do you, all of these things, they don't know. And then we give them a little cheapo tool case to take home. And so we are doing lifelong skills throughout this. Part of what we did over the summer, we also worked with the Yolo County Office of Education, and they came in and did some of their transitional youth classes with our teen staff for those things. And so that's a really good partnership because we've got these kids that are interested, that are engaged, they're here, they're wanting to learn these things, and the Office of Education wants to teach these things, and that way we're not reinventing each other's wheel. They can come in with the audience that we have here for them and do their program so we don't have to.
Thank you.
Mhm. With your bus pass, how much oversight does staff do directly once someone is checked out? So when you walk into Square One, you need to have your library card and your ID with you. I have this like kind of secret fantasy that there's this underground market for library cards. Like I'll trade you my bus pass for your your laser pass for my 3D pass or whatever. I don't think that really happens, but it does actually happen with siblings. So I have had underage siblings try to use their older siblings' library card to get into the wood shop. So it does come up. So we are staffed by at least 2 staff members at all times while we're open. It's a fairly open space. And so if somebody has taken the laser class, that means that they have sat through a lecture, they've watched the demonstration, and then they've actually already cut something out. And then there's a handout for that as well that they get to keep from that. And staff don't really, I mean, staff are walking around and staff are available, but they're not sitting right next to them unless somebody asks for help. And it's a very fine line between, I am going to help you with your project, I'm not going to do your project for you. A lot of times people come in and like, I don't know anything, I can't do this. Well, I will walk you through step by step, but I'm not actually going to do it for you. Even though that would be easier on both of us right now, because the purpose is they are learning how to use this. So staff are kind of walking around, checking in with people, but they're not really focused on that, on each individual person. We can have 20 or 30 people in there at a time sometimes. So does that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. We've got a very small makerspace, so I'm just,
Mhm.
like I said, I'm trying to get that same kind of system in place
Mhm.
where everyone is checked out and they, scan in with the library card and then they're allowed to use a piece of equipment. And
Yes.
so I was kind of wondering how you were working that.
So when they check in, the laser cutter is right there, so you can't really get onto it without somebody seeing you. But you can't go into the wood shop and use any of the stuff without we have a box of the safety keys that come with the power tools. So when you buy a drill press or whatever, there's a little safety key in that. So we take all of those, we have all of those behind the desk, and you get that box of keys when you check in, and we see that your library card has the woodshop bus on it already. Same thing for the sewing machines. All of the power cords are behind the desk. So you can't just go get a sewing machine and start going to town. You have to come get the power cord. And it's the same with like our color printers and different things like that. So we try to put small barriers to the things that are really popular or really more complex and need the safety classes, just so that they have to go through us to do that. Yvonne, I love that idea and we should do that. Leah, our service population is about 65,000 people. How do we schedule time for people to use the 3D printer? So we have, a, nope. Anyway, all right, I will send you the link. There we go. So that's our scheduling link. So we've got that and people can go in and reserve time on the 3D printer or the laser cutter or the wood shop or the sewing machines, different things like that, or just a workspace. And we do not limit the size and type of print. We have PLA and ABS that people can use. We ask people not to do them more than 24 hours, but we're not really sitting there monitoring that. In the 6.5 years we've been open, we've had 2 major repairs that we had to do that were caused by patron issue. And it was pretty bad. And so we revoked their bus and they had to take it again. It was a teen. And she came in, took the bus again, and now she's super conscientious and totally helps everyone else. So Yvonne, you had another question?
Yeah. What is I see that's you using Acuity. That's not a library vendor. Have you tried other library vendors? Why didn't you go with others? Or
So we set this up during COVID. We were trying to get curbside going. The library vendor, I don't recall which one it was at this point. I was trying to get one, so I had demos with a bunch of different people. The one that we chose tied into the ILS, but because we partner with Sacramento, we couldn't get the authentication to work. So we had to pick something else. And that's just what we've stuck with. I don't love it. I would love to go to one of those other ones, but just transition time and all of that has kept us here.
thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate your time. Great questions. I'm happy to answer questions. Shoot me an email. And I'm happy to share stuff that we've got. So our resources and things like that. I'm so glad, Crystal. You are very welcome. Yeah.
If you all will go to the link that I put in the chat and take our post-event survey, that would be awesome. I think we'll also send it out when we send out the video.
You are all welcome to come anytime, even if we're not open. Send me an email and I will give you a tour anyway. I think we should set up just like a come hang out time, but you know.
I like the brewery, maybe.
It's like walking distance, 2 blocks from here.
Too convenient.
Yeah, it's craft beer, right? Like craft beer. What was that, Kathy?
Does it include airfare from New York?
There's got to be a grant for that somewhere, right?
I don't know. We're 3,400 people in our community, very rural. This is not an easy.
Do you know Kathy Cesari?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so she did Zoom classes for us over COVID.
Cool.
She is amazing. So
Yeah.
she's an incredible resource if you need stuff. And we've got some leftover materials from the stuff that we did with her. So if you need something, let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a question, Yvonne?
Oh, quick.
Another one.
Sorry, I don't mean to ask all the questions, but
No.
Are you going to share this presentation, this PowerPoint, this slide deck?
I can, yeah.
That was it. Thanks, I appreciate it. I will definitely go visit you. My in-laws are in Sacramento, so on the way there.
Fabulous. Yeah.
And do we have your email?
Yeah, it was on that last slide. It's square1@cityofwoodland.org or Trina.camping at cityofwoodland.org. Yeah.
Thanks. Have a good weekend. I hope the air is not too bad. And air quality is not too bad.
Yeah, it's not great. Not great.
All right. All right. See ya.
All right. Bye, Yvonne.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, there's my email address in the chat.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. This is great.
You're very welcome.